The food insulin index describes how much insulin is released as a response to the ingestion of a certain number of calories of food. Next to the well-known regulation of blood sugar, insulin also regulates blood protein levels and is thus also released in response to protein ingestion. The food insulin index is even more important than the glycemic load when it comes to assessing the health effects of foods or entire meals. Remember to subscribe to our channel. Insulin and protein. It is well known that readily available carbohydrates increase blood sugar levels and subsequently insulin levels. It is less well known that readily available proteins also increase insulin levels to a comparable amount. Readily available protein means animal protein, because plant protein generally comes with fiber and is absorbed more slowly. This also explains why steak releases more insulin than white pasta, even though steak contains no carbohydrates at all. Eating low carb does not necessarily result in low insulin levels. Insulin resistance. The food insulin index is determined by testing the effects of various foods on healthy individuals without insulin resistance. People with insulin resistance, including type 2 diabetics, should be even more careful with high insulinogenic foods, especially animal protein. For these people, 50 grams of animal protein spike insulin as much as 50 grams of pure sugar. And animal protein often comes in a package with saturated fat, which is one of the main causes of insulin resistance itself. Preventing and reversing insulin resistance is the most important step when trying to achieve normal and healthy insulin responses to food intake. Protein restriction. The recommended daily protein intake is just 0.8 gram of protein per kilogram ideal body weight, 0.9 gram if you eat predominantly plant protein. This is only about 50 to 60 grams for most people, and these recommendations include various safety buffers. Average protein needs are much lower. People on Western dietary patterns generally eat 50 to 100% more protein than recommended, with most of that being animal protein. Protein restriction to recommended levels and shifting to plant protein can greatly decrease insulin and especially insulin-like growth factor levels, improving your metabolic health and reducing your cancer risk significantly. Insulin-like growth factor. There are two growth hormones which resemble insulin and are thus called insulin-like growth factors, IGF-1 and IGF-2. IGF-1 levels are highest in puberty and fall naturally thereafter. IGF-1 levels are closely related to the height a person will grow to, but it also stimulates cancer growth. Unnaturally elevated IGF-1 levels throughout and after puberty are linked to various types of cancer and other metabolic problems and should be avoided. IGF-1 is found in dairy products, and its endogenous production is also stimulated by the intake of animal protein and isolated soy protein. Insulin affects the blood level of IGF hormones and their binding hormones which keep them in check, as well as how strongly they interact with our cells. Glycemic load. In general, the carbohydrate content of foods is not directly related to their food insulin index scores. For example, porridge, which releases only 40% as much insulin as the same number of calories of white bread. It depends on their glycemic load. A high-carb food can have a low food insulin index if its glycemic load is low. But even the insulin response to higher glycemic load foods, like some fruits or starches, can be blunted by eating them alongside other low glycemic plant foods. Bad combination. Combining high glycemic foods with animal protein makes matters worse. Both are insulinogenic by themselves, and in combination they culminate in very high food insulin index scores. For example, a cow milk-based fruit yogurt, which releases 15% more insulin than white bread, and about 3 to 4 times as much as intact grains. Thus, carbohydrate-rich foods are best accompanied by more plant foods, best high in fiber, instead of animal products, to avoid these exaggerated insulin responses, not to forget the effect on IGF-1. Insulin and weight gain. Some low-carb fat diets follow the hypothesis that carbs increase insulin, which promotes fat storage and inhibits fat burning, which thus leads to weight gain. This so-called carbohydrate insulin model of obesity has been falsified experimentally. First of all, animal protein also spikes insulin, and the relationship between insulin and weight gain is not as clear-cut as people might think. The release of insulin in response to food intake is completely normal and necessary. What we do not want are excessive spikes of insulin meal after snack after meal, and elevated levels of insulin-like growth factors because of increased cancer risk. The high calorie density of foods is more important than their insulinogenic effect when it comes to weight gain. Thanks for watching. Did you know about the food insulin index? Let us know in the comment section. If you like our weekly videos, don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell. See you next week!